Intriguing Beginnings, Chapter 1. When I entered her room, I walked in and stood next to her bed. I looked down at her and took her hand. Her eyes slowly opened, and she glanced around the room. She paid no attention to the two men at the foot of her bed, but smiled warmly when she saw me. "Hello, dear brother," she whispered weakly. "Hello, dear little sister," I replied. "How are you doing?" She grinned. "I'm not doing well. We all know that. She turned her head toward the doctor and nurse standing against the wall. "They're just waiting for it to happen so they can record the time." She looked at me again. "Where's Tommy?" Tommy was her husband. "He's on his way. I don't think he'll make it in time." She took a deep breath, which was a struggle for her. She closed her eyes and a tear appeared in her left eye. "Shh," I said. "Don't talk. Save your strength. I have something to tell him. He'll be here soon." She paused, and I brought her hand to my lips and kissed it. "I cheated on him." "I know," I said. "Does Tommy know?" "No," I said. "Are you going to tell him?" "No, it was a mistake." "I know it was." "Can I tell you something else now that I'm confessing?" "You know you can." "It's going to sound weird." "It can't be weirder than some of the things we've told each other over the years." "I think this is going to be the weirdest. Come closer." I leaned toward her. She whispered in my ear. "I've always wanted to bake cupcakes with you," she managed to say. "Doesn't that surprise you?" I squeezed her hand, smiled, and whispered in her ear, "No, it doesn't surprise me because I've wanted to love you ever since I first saw you grow up." She laughed and coughed, spitting up blood. I took a handkerchief and wiped her mouth. "I never thought my last thought would be baking cupcakes with my brother." "And I hope my last thought won't be baking cupcakes with my sister," I said. She smiled broadly, then drew an air sharply. "Is it time?" she asked. "Tell Tommy I love him and kiss me goodbye." I nodded and leaned in to kiss her. After a few seconds, I felt her lips relax, and I realized she was gone. "The end, Chris," my editor said. "Her name is Crystal, but her friends and family call her Chris. She's also my wife's sister. If that doesn't make your readers emotional, then I don't know what will." "You think so?" I laughed. "I'd like to understand your thought process and see how genuine what you're writing about is," she said. "You'd probably be surprised," I said, getting up to leave. An hour or 3 later, I was already at home sipping a gin and tonic when my phone rang. It was Chris. "You forgot to sign the new contract," she said. "I know that. I'll take care of it myself." "You know we can't give you an advance or publish a book until it's signed." "I understand that." At home, I pondered what Chris had said about understanding my thought process. She'll never know how close to the truth the ending of that last book is. I do have a sister, and I did have thoughts of a close relationship with her. However, there was no way I would act on those thoughts. I also had a wife, but the thought of baking cupcakes with her occupied me the least. It wasn't that she wasn't attractive or that baking cupcakes with her wasn't enjoyable. My problem was that I didn't like waiting in line. I wanted to tell Chris about her sister's behavior, but changed my mind. Lisa was my wife. We had been married for 6 years. Lisa and I had been teachers even before I sold my first book. My writing was moderately successful, so I decided to quit teaching and write full-time. My second book was more successful, and we hoped that the one I had just given Chris would be even more popular. After my writing success, Lisa decided she didn't need to work anymore and quit. That was about 7 months ago. It was Chris who suggested I try writing. Almost 3 years ago, she and Lisa were cleaning out our attic, and there was some of my college stuff. Among that stuff were several short stories I'd written for one of my college English courses. Chris took them, read them, showed them to a few other editors, and everyone agreed that I should try writing. It was almost a year before Chris and I felt my first novel was ready for publication, the same with my second, and about 8 months with my last. Since she stopped working, Lisa has spent a lot of time at the gym, eating lunch with her few teacher friends, going into town to visit Chris, or generally just relaxing and hanging out with her non-working friends and neighbors. We didn't have many friends and family, so I didn't mind her socializing. Sometimes my mom and her boyfriend would fly over to spend the weekend with us. We lost my dad 10 years ago, and my mom had been dating a guy named Les for the past 2 years. When they came to town, we usually had dinner out the first night with a visit to the theater and dinner the second night, and then they would fly home the next day. Mom was a little nervous about staying with us the first time they came as a couple. She and Les didn't live together, but they took turns spending the night at each other's houses. I knew about it because my sister told me, but my mom wasn't sure how I would feel about it. I reassured her when they came to the house the first time and showed them their room. She touched my hand and asked, "Do you mind?" I laughed, hugged her, and said, "Of course not." After that, we all relaxed and enjoyed the weekend. The four of us had a few weekends like that. We invited Mom and Les to come over for another weekend. A few days before they arrived, Lisa told me that she had other plans for the weekend. "What other plans? Don't we have to do anything?" I asked. "Not we, me. A few of our friends from the gym are having a bachelorette party this weekend. Don't you think we should talk about that? It's no big deal. 6 of us are going to stay in a lake house that belongs to one of them." "How long will you be gone?" "Just for the weekend." "I'm not sure about that." "Oh, for God's sake, Matt. It's just 6 girls at the lake. I'm sure we can take care of ourselves. Besides, it should be fun." "That's not what this is about." "Then what's the point?" "I guess we should have talked about it since you knew my mother was coming." She and her friends from the gym had done this 4 or 5 more times in the past few months. Somewhere on the weekend, they have a bachelorette party. In addition to weekend getaways, there have been a few overnight stays for shopping and girl time in the city, as well as a few day trips. I didn't mind her spending time with her friends and engaging in these activities, because it gave her something to do. Besides, working out at the gym had improved her already very fit body. "Well, it's too late now. We'll discuss it next time," she said, and walked away. The rest of the week at home was rather uncomfortable. Friday morning, I was in my office when she walked in. "I was just leaving," I said. "Are you going to kiss me goodbye?" I slowly got up and walked over to her. I took her hand and led her across the house to the garage door in the kitchen. Her bag was there, so I picked her up and carried her to the car, where I kissed her lightly. "Are you going to be upset with me all weekend?" she asked. "Probably even longer than that." She kissed me. "You'll get over it, I guess." I watched her drive out of the garage and speed down the street. We lived in a small town outside of New York City. We had a nice house and 2 cars. We rarely ventured into town, preferring to take the train into the city when needed. Actually, we were rarely in the city itself. Sometimes on Friday or Saturday nights, we would have dinner and catch a play, especially when my mom visited. I had, of course, met periodically with Chris, my editor. I picked up Mom and Les a few hours later, and after some getting to know each other chatter, we headed out to our favorite local restaurant. Later, at home, we had another drink and chatted some more. They were disappointed that Lisa wasn't there. The next day, we mostly hung around the house before heading into town. Mom's visits were one of the rare occasions when we went into town. Parking was always a challenge. I managed to get tickets to the most popular musical of the season, albeit at a higher price than we usually paid for theater tickets. Lisa wanted to see it, but flatly refused to pay. She would be shocked if she found out how much I had to pay for them. Mom, Les, and I were in the lobby of the theater. I told them to go to their seats, and I would order drinks during intermission. I placed my order and joined them. Our seats were in the 5th row center. In my opinion, they were the best seats in the auditorium. The first act was very good, not quite worth the ticket price, but still enjoyable. During intermission, the 3 of us grabbed our drinks and stood in the crowded lobby discussing the play when I heard a familiar laugh. To be continued.